Welcome, everyone. This afternoon, I'm so glad to have you here today for our webinar about Backyard Explorers as a summer reading program. Most of the people on the call today have been awarded some money to think about doing nature inquiry and backyard science as part of their summer reading program, and we think that goes along well with the theme. Uh, these awards and this webinar are supported by the National Science Foundation, Advancements in Informal STEM Learning. And so we want to thank them for the opportunity to think about what it looks like to do citizen science at the library and for arming you with the, resources, financial and informational to do that. The Spotty Rain campaign really focuses on the design of educational media for rural and small libraries like you as a place to do STEM learning. And specifically, we focus on drought monitoring. So, this all started with an interest in the rural library as a place to have a rain gauge or to encourage other people to volunteer. And in our passion for environmental monitoring and the role that people can play in helping scientists and managers respond to extreme weather. So that's evolved over time from rain gauges, more broadly to citizen science. And I'm so glad to be partnered with the Southeast Oklahoma Library System. When we first started this project, it was COVID and the libraries closed down and we were not sure what we were going to do. And they simultaneously were thinking, what are we going to do? And delving into some uses of YouTube and other online and virtual programming. So a lot of what we've developed today is coming out of that context, but I'm really proud to have Heath here. He's my favorite librarian, former
Oh,
state parks
nice,
employee.
nice.
And the creator of the Backyard Explorers program. So today we're looking forward to learning from Heath about Backyard Explorers. I think a lot of you are thinking about what you're going to do for your summer reading, and so I've asked Heath to share sort of the pedagogy and tips of being a Backyard Explorers librarian, how he thinks about STEM education and
Mhm.
engages kids in the library. Backyard Explorers is available online, and I've shared the links with you. And I also in the chat have shared a quick guide. We put our heads together thinking maybe how could we help you streamline this process and incorporate the lessons and buy necessary materials without too much time commitment. Backyard Explorers follows a learn, try, act model. And so in this case, learn with Heath in a video about a topic, try out that topic by doing a logbook challenge or an exploration at home, and then
Yeah.
act, connecting that interest to possible citizen science organizations and volunteer opportunities that youth and community might want to participate in. So I'm going to give Heath an opportunity. The goal is to sort of learn from him about the program, and then we'll have a lot of time for you to ask questions. Feel free to enter them in the chat. Heath and I both want to wing it, or or we've talked about this a bunch, and so we are open to discussions and questions along the way. And the real goal is for you to leave today kind of understanding maybe what Backyard Explorers has to offer and how you might use, adapt, or modify those for your own backyard science programs. Really proud to announce that our relationship with the Southeast Oklahoma Library System has extended beyond rain gauges now to water quality testing with our Oklahoma Well Owners Network. And so just so thrilled to have Heath and the Southeast Oklahoma Library System as leaders in backyard science and citizen science. And thank Heath again for being here. So
Thank you.
if you're ready, Heath, I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
So Nicole and I, we've beat up this topic over the last few years. So I made myself a few notes, but mostly I wanted to share my enthusiasm about this and my experience with it, a little bit about how it evolved. But I want to leave a lot of room for questions, and I'm so encouraged. I mean, I'm truly encouraged by the number of people in this group. because so a little bit of background. Before I had the pleasure of being a librarian, I was a naturalist for the state park system of Oklahoma. And so I got to do all the cool stuff. And a part-time job opening at my childhood library opened. And I took a huge hit to apply for a job at my childhood library. And I got it. And I asked my manager at the time if I could do nature programs at the library, and she said yes. And it just grew, and people showed up, and it grew and it grew, and then they would want to do topics on things that I knew very little about, like astronomy. I don't know much about the stars, right? So I invited somebody who did know. I didn't know a whole bunch about drought, so I invited Dr. Nicole, right? So and we're going to talk about things like that. But we do the Learn, Try, Act model. So I want your explorers to learn about the topic using library resources and things provided like videos, or, you're librarians, you're very resourceful. We're going to try by doing a craft, doing a little take home something or a citizen science project in the library or in your local park or backyard. And then we're going to act. Hopefully that's them either becoming an enthusiast or more knowledgeable about citizen science, or maybe even taking that next step and participating in a real citizen science project where they really collect data in the real world. I'm going to read something. It is basically the description of the program and then the learning outcomes, and that maybe that'll set up some questions that you might have for me later. So the brief description of Backyard Explorers is it's a program for elementary age children and families. Explorers learn about science through nature and exploration and discovery. Every program has a theme, a data collection element, and a craft. Backyard Explorers is an introduction to citizen science. All the activities can be done with little to no financial overhead and can be conducted in their own backyards and local parks without special equipment. The Backyard Explorer program is designed to encourage exploration in our own neighborhoods by removing barriers to participating in science. Anyone can be a backyard explorer. Learn how to create similar program at your library. So there's a few important things in there to me. I don't want us to do anything that requires a big financial overhead. I don't want anything that kids can't actually do, right? So none of my data collection elements require a telescope, for instance, right? That kind of thing. Now, our learning outcomes, we're going to do the Learn, Try, Act model, but is number one, scalability. I've got a staff of 12 and a 3-story library. To some, that might be really big. To other people, that might be, oh, that's a pretty small library. So it's scalability. This Backyard Explorers can be done whether you're a 1-person library or a 100-person library. You decide your own scale. These are just ideas we're going to share together. You decide your own level of buy-in. Open access, I already mentioned some of that. Open access is my second learning outcome. I want everyone to be able to participate in scientific discovery, regardless of income or physical limitations. Pretty simply stated. And resources. So we're going to use our library resources, we're going to use our community resources, and we're going to, of course, use the resources that Dr. Nicole has neatly collaborated here. Nice hyperlinks that she provided for us that are super useful. So that's the very simple, neat version. But basically, it's something I'm really enthusiastic about. Libraries are this open format thing, and STEM has become incredibly popular and is a requirement in a lot of libraries. And Backyard Explorers neatly checks off that STEM box. We started with just a few topics that I was really enthusiastic about. I particularly love plants and trees and soil, and so I started with those, and then we started expanding. And when the topic is a little out of my range, I will invite someone in. Now, you might hear me use the word expert. I don't mean like Dr. Nicole is on drought. I mean, when I say expert, I typically mean enthusiast. And there are enthusiasts in your community, right? I guarantee you there is a bird enthusiast in your library community. There is a tree or plant enthusiast. There's a gardening enthusiast. There's a star enthusiast. There's somebody that loves watching the weather. They're enthusiasts in your community, and I encourage you to use them because uh, enthusiasm is infectious. And I really believe that. Now, librarians are constantly being asked to be jacks of all trades. And this is the rare circumstance I'm asking you not to. I do not expect you to be, many of you're career librarians. You're not career leaf people, weather people, etc. But what librarians, every library I've ever been to, what librarians are is excellent enthusiasts. Oh, you're really into Grapes of Wrath? That's awesome. Like, let me help you find a resource on that. Oh, like you're super into dinosaurs? That's outstanding. Let me help you find all the resources you need on that. So librarians are already predisposed to be enthusiasts for our guests. And I think that you will naturally, seamlessly move in this direction. So a few brief notes that I've got, and I think you already know all this stuff. So for us, Backyard Explorers continue to become more and more popular. So we continue to do more and more topics. There's a few things that are always the same. We almost always have a video, but we always connect it to our existing library collection, right? So if the topic is insects, drag out all your books on insects, bugs, if you will. They can be from your adult collection. They can be movies, right? They can be documentaries. They can be from the kids collection. It doesn't matter, but you want to highlight that collection. You want to bring people in. And I'll tell you, along with the hook to books, I take just a very brief moment and tell, because the parents will be in the room too, typically. I like to just very briefly tell them what they need to get a library card. And we hit that and we move on. But highlight your collection, encourage people to check out these books for, hey, if you're interested in insects, I've got all these books that are available for checkout. The other thing is, so we do data collection, but we do it at our own level, which we really had to figure out the dial on this, because this isn't Backyard Explorers for 10-year-olds. It's not Backyard Explorers for 5-year-olds, right? We want to invite an entire age range into this. So when kids do a weather journal, if a very young explorer said it was sunny today and drew a picture of a sun, perfect, you nailed it. Excellent. But if you have an older explorer, maybe you expect them to say what the barometric pressure was, exactly how much rain we had that day, right? So, and there's not a wrong answer, right? If they participated, they did it right. Because what we're really trying to do is to garner excitement about the process of collecting data and becoming a citizen scientist. And so it's really not about getting a grade or how well you did. It's about participating and growing that enthusiasm. So videos are provided, but you don't have to use them. Logbooks are provided, and I do suggest some type of logbook, even if you do it at your own level. Well, for birds, if a very young explorer says, I saw a red bird and a bluebird, perfect, you nailed it. But if I have an older explorer, what was the bird species, right? What was the bird's behavior, right? What was the weather? What was the time of day? So you want to keep it broad and an open format so that people of a variety of ages can participate in that. And that's a lot of it. I mean, that's the very shortest version of it. So I want to take a lot of time for questions today. There's a lot of benefits in this for libraries that I believe. So some that I wrote down, tangible benefits. I hope you have an increase in circulation. I hope it brings more people into your library. I hope that people in your community see you as being civically engaged and environmentally conscious. Uh, and there's the intangible, the hard to measure, that you're literally creating a net good in your community, that the library is science conscious, uh, and basically that you care and you're willing to put your time and your resources towards a positive good for the future of your community. And that's more of the intangible, but it's something I believe in, and I'm happy to open it up for questions. Dr. Nicole, please jump in anything that I leave out, and I hope you tell them more about specific ways to act and get engaged in real scientific data collection.
Yeah. Heath has been teaching us to think as a librarian, and so maybe some of the stuff he says resonates with you. Having the book hook and to increase your circulation. These Backyard Explorers videos are unique, I think, because they are centered at the library. Each of Heath's episodes starts at the library and encourages students to think about their nature explorations as informed by the resources provided by the library. So I like that component of it. Heath, would you talk a little bit more about like using the tools of science? So I hear you talking today about making the explorations accessible by not requiring tools. But I think you talk to me, you always sort of try to have a tool of science. Would you talk a little bit more about maybe some examples of that?
Yeah. So, first, and I think librarians understand what I mean by, like, I really try to limit the barriers to access. So, for instance, binoculars are great for birding, but what if I don't have binoculars? Does that mean that I can't collect data? Oh, watching the stars is great, but I don't have a telescope. Does that mean that I can't participate? And we really want to be conscious of this. Now, there's things that are so inexpensive that I do encourage you to even make them prizes. So I'm preparing for maps. We're gonna do maps the first week of May, and I do very inexpensive compasses. Sometimes I've got these inflatable beach balls that are of the Earth, and they have the longitude, latitude, grid, key, all of it on there, and they're like 50 cents. I wish I had a link. I just link it up for you, but I got them on Amazon. They're incredibly inexpensive. A pack of compasses is incredibly cheap. So you can give these little things, but really at the root of it is you want them to feel like they can participate even if they don't have the special equipment that's required. Now, I will say, as a little disclaimer, our Friends of the Library group is incredibly supportive of Backyard Explorers, and they got us cool kid microscopes. I have 5 of them. We do not check them out, but kids can use them here at the library, and we have a lot of fun, and we make a big mess, right? but even before we ever use the microscopes in that given day, we make observations. So, for instance, we looked at the scales of a snake skin that we're going to look under a microscope. But before we ever use the microscope in our journal, we describe what we saw, what it looked like, what it felt like. And so they are getting to participate in that data collection element before they ever even use the special piece of equipment. And even if you can only get maybe one pair of binoculars, good, they can learn to share, because that's important too. Yep. Right?
Yeah, I think maybe someone like me, a scientist, thinks about citizen science and like the data we can get from it, but I really come to realize that the library is, for a lot of people, an introduction to science, And you were talking about sort of about how it is for, multiple age kids, but how even parents have questions to ask
Oh yeah. Yeah.
about these interests as well. So I see here that Melody put a really good question, a familiar face to the group, and she wants to know, if you put the programs in sections like part one, part two, or a finale, and I think she's thinking about, how to turn this into a summer reading program. So I think,
That
some suggestions on how you've cycled through the Backyard Explorers.
well, we seasons definitely matters, right? You don't want to do insects in the winter, right? For instance. But out of the topics available, so these are prompts. They're ones that I like. You don't want to do leaves in the dead of winter, right? You want to do that when there's leaves on the trees. It's really good for fall. It's pretty good for summer. Insects is pretty good for summer because uh, insects are exothermic, right? And so they're not moving, they're not doing anything in the winter. So in that sense, it really does matter. The other thing that I would say, now I don't have a finale, and I love the idea of having a finale, by the way. But the thing that I think could matter for you is if you're looking at this list, like soil, leaves, trees, insects, weather, if there is any of those that actually excite you, right? That lean into that, because I do believe enthusiasm is infectious. If you care about the topic, you cannot help. You will not even be able to resist getting someone else excited about that topic. So, but in the broader sense, some of the topics are really limited uh, by the season, and that'll matter.
I think it's important, from our perspective, that you do the program in a way that is useful for your library. It connects to whatever audience, whether it's a youth group or a teen group, and works, with things that you already do. Um, I know that your Backyard Explorers, though, Heath, when we first started off in April, we would share one theme a week, and that rotation was just too quick. So now, aren't you choosing a theme quarterly or
We
monthly?
we do one topic a month,
Yes.
right? Uh, so this last time we did a special one last month for the eclipse, but the time before that we did soil and we did dirt cups is what I call them. It's we a lot of times we just make a giant mess. But for instance, y'all see my goofy hat. So when you're enthusiast, sometimes that means you can't take yourself super seriously, right? You have to just come at it with a light heart. And imagine you're a kid and you're learning about soil today, right? So we made dirt cups a month before last, and it's Oreos at the bottom to represent our base material, and pudding, and then we had some coconut at the top to represent the grass, and then some gummy worms to represent the living organic organisms that live in the soil. And then, of course, we made a big mess and ate it. So you have to be able to have fun, uh, and you can't take yourself too seriously when you do it. And don't be afraid to learn with the kids. So you're the librarian. You may not be an expert on mammals or bats or whatever the topic is that month. So don't be afraid to tell the kids, I didn't know that. I just learned that too. Be able to learn with them and be excited with them about this topic and learn together.
Yeah. Challenge them to use the library resources to help answer
Mm.
questions, maybe that you don't
Yep.
know the answer
Yep.
to.
And I'm, if your topic is insects, uh, open it up and ask everybody to tell them a story or ask a question about insects. I've never had a situation where a kid didn't have a cool story about an insect or a bird or a snake. And so that leads into a conversation about that organism or about the weather or whatever the topic happens to be.
All right. So,
Oh,
oh yeah, Kaylee's sharing
thank
that.
you, Kaylee. So I get a lot of help with this because people like the program. Kaylee makes our scavenger hunts and she provides them to the entire library system. And she just sent me one today for maps. It looks great, Kaylee. And so I recommend y'all do this no matter what size of library you are. It's the kids have a page, it's a scavenger hunt, and then the symbols, they walk around the library and they find those symbols and they check it off their list. But it's a great way to get them interacting in your library. It's a passive program, and they are learning their library. So put them in the places that might be relevant to the topic or that you would just like them to know. Like, oh, this is where the new juvenile fiction is. Oh, this is where the books on dinosaurs are. Whatever you would like to highlight, use your scavenger hunt so that the young explorers are learning their way around the library in a topic relevant thing. And it's a lot of fun. We hand them out all month long. We collect that number and we count them as a passive program. It's really great.
Yeah, we've kind of taken the lovely resources that Kaylee has assembled and some of Heath's. So if you were looking in the guidebook, I shared the link earlier and I just put it in the chat. We've kind of tried to break down each of the lessons in this learn, try, act format. And there's beginning with the video and this idea that maybe if you choose to use the video and Heath, there are segments of it or all of them, they're generally about 5 minutes long, that you'd have like an activity out on the table. And so there's some ideas here about handouts or crafts ideas about related to leaves, for example, in this first one. And we've tried to find a low-cost tool of science that you might have out or available as part of that introduction. So again, just introducing the topic, having that fun craft library type activity that the kids are used to achieving or seeing, and maybe, a fun tool of science. And then try would be that challenge for the youth and families to do the Backyard Explorers logbook. And so in the case of leaves, it's a leaf collection, and some suggestions are given in the video and on the logbook about how to go about that. And, they might want some books along the way to help them. So Jim Pendred, our graduate student, has gone through and tried to identify, maybe some products that you might spend your money on to boost but I'm sure your collections have lots of stuff on plants and leaves
Uh,
and trees.
a note I wanted to make on the execution of this. So, we're talking about, videos and logbooks and a craft and, it seems like a lot. There's an order to the operations on this that I've learned over the years. So maybe most of us here grew up where when you were in class, you had to sit quietly on your hands and wait until you were told to do something. I don't do that. As soon as we get in the classroom, let them start working on the craft. It keeps their hands busy and behavior will be dramatically improved if you let them begin, whether it's just a coloring page or whether it's the craft. No matter what the topic is, I promise there's coloring pages on the topic, even soil. There's coloring pages on the topic of even layers of soil, right? And if they're listening, I promise they will chime in with a question or with a story that they want to tell you. So let them get their hands busy with either a craft or a coloring page or whatever, and then you can start the video. Then you can start talking about the topic. Behavior will be much better. They will still be getting a lot out of it, and they'll learn that they're allowed to have fun and stay busy while you're talking about this subject.
Yes. Excellent point. I think maybe the connection that we'd like to make with Backyard Explorers is that act or that next step where a passion or an interest might be translated into some other more in-depth or volunteer opportunity with a citizen science group. So you can see underneath try, in addition to the logbook challenge and the book hook, and I can see we're missing the link to the scavenger hunt of the maple leaf, but I'll make sure we get that filled in. The scavenger hunt that's up, and another passive way. We have cool tools. So lots of times for these nature inquiries, we've come to an age of technology where your phone can help you in some way to identify or categorize or learn more about the topic. So in this case, we've shared Leaf, Snap, and Seek as, apps that people might want to use while they were out doing their scavenger hunt. And so, that digital option, if you want to share with them. And then we've thought a little bit about that act. What does it look like to act at the library, or what are some volunteer opportunities that you could encourage families or students that were interested in? So, with trees, there's a lot of tree days. I know libraries like to celebrate holidays. There's holidays to match into, this opportunity to maybe plant a tree at the library. There's some existing projects. They take varying levels of commitment and knowledge. But we've also, secured or made partnerships with some scientists on these topics. So sharing here under Leaves, Tony Pascal is the new director of the Oklahoma Forestry. He does Project Learning Trees, really excited about connecting with libraries and, willing to maybe be an expert as you plan or jump in virtually or physically, depending on where you're located. So each of the Backyard Explorers topics that we have a video and a logbook from also have some ACT material to sort of help you think about connecting to citizen science organizations, scientists, or other library opportunities.
Yeah, so from the chat,
Mhm.
so Kaylee is in a bookmobile. It's approximately maybe 144 square foot in that neighborhood. It's a bookmobile. And it's really cool, but it's not just giant, right? And even the bookmobile with a librarian and a driver are able to participate at a scalable level in Backyard Explorers. So I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, my staff's not big enough, or I don't have enough time, because you really do get to pick just how involved you want to be. Like Dr. Nicole said, we used to do this far more often. And now we just do it once a month and we try to make a big deal out of it. But other libraries, they just have the scavenger hunt going all the time, or they'll do the take home logbook challenge to where the kids take the logbook challenge home or to the local park and they work on it and they bring it back to the library. Maybe they get a little prize, something like that. So you really do get to decide at what scale you want to participate.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think Kaylee's talking about the option of a pop-up program. I think we haven't seen this come to fruition, but we know your libraries are small. There aren't a lot of staff, and sometimes even having a program and making sure people come matters. So Backyard Explorers is kind of fun in the way that you could pop the video on and do the logbook challenge at any point that a student walked in, or I say student, that
Explore.
reveals my position in life, but a youth or family community member, for sure. Yeah. And again, I think we're more interested in discovering how you integrate nature inquiry and these resources rather than mandating how you go about doing it.
Right.
So, I also just want to echo what Heath was saying about, finding experts in your area. So it doesn't always have to be a scientist. There's
Right.
a beekeeper or,
Yeah.
like other folks in your community who know about these topics and could be invited to maybe take some of that pressure of knowing everything about it
And
off.
if you're a frontline librarian, you might already have a customer in mind, right?
Yeah.
So we have had a beekeeper. It was a double win because that person's also a city council member, right? And I like them coming into their library. But we've had astronomers come in. We've had rock enthusiasts come in, people that are, self-identified rock hounds, come into the library. We've also had soil people come in. A couple of resources to keep in mind is if you have a local 4-H, they are excellent and always looking for outreach opportunities, right? If you have an OSU extension office kind of near you, they're often looking for outreach opportunities. Another one is, especially for summer reading, keep in mind like that the teachers, the public school teachers in our communities are typically like really nice library supporters, right? There's a significant overlap on like teachers and librarians. Like we don't have the same mission, but they rhyme, right? And there's 2 months of the year where they're just like available, right? And so those teachers, I'll tell you, I've never had a teacher tell me no, they couldn't be a guest. They didn't want to, right? So like I mentioned, just last month, a teacher came to be a special guest to host the astronomy regarding the eclipse. So there are experts in your community. There's enthusiasts in your community, and they're out there, and they will say yes. And then it's just about finding a day, right? Finding a time on the calendar.
I just want to share also like the joy of the kinds of fun questions that people come up with, or, in the case of weather, they're crazy weather stories. And I get great joy from hearing that, kids come in with bags of leaves to dump out on the ground to show Heath, and that he has
Uh,
a pile of,
so
yeah,
Dr. Nicole, you
weather
might enjoy
journals.
this. I was given this beautiful specimen about a week ago, this beautiful bird's nest, and they know I love these things. And then about a month ago, and I keep all these. I was given this large nut. I think it's a bur oak, but yeah. So you start hosting programs, and you'll just have young explorers just come and be excited and come and give you random things because they know that you'll be excited about it. And guess what? It's your job to be.
Yep. Yeah, I think there are a lot of goals here. Maybe we're interested in citizen science or encouraging science awareness, but I think, environmental care and respect and observation, nature inquiry are interested in. I just think a lot of parents and youth are looking for these kinds of opportunities. So we have on today with us my co-PI, Dr. Tudolini Asino, and you'll notice as you go through the logbooks that there are little lightning shaped images on there, and the students in his lab, the Emerging Technologies and Creativity Research Lab here at Oklahoma State, have created that. There's a special reader called Zapar that you can download, and then each of those logbooks has a 3D augmented reality image associated with it. So I think when it's insects, you can walk around a butterfly, and when it's leaves, it's a maple tree. So in this way, trying to use people's devices and excitement about technology to continue thinking about that. I think we're in the process of revising that Zapar subscription, and so I can't show you today, but I did share with you sort of a link where to a video where we have highlighted that feature. So I just wanted to point that out. I don't know, Dr. Asino, is there anything you'd like to add to the conversation about new media and technology and backyard explorers or the Zapar?
Hello, everybody. I always feel inadequate following Heath's excitement about the project, so I don't think I can add anything else on that. I think Heath has been a great partner, and Dr. Colson has been a great leader on this project. The Zappa code should be working because I think the account has been active since last week, so we should be good. But if anybody's having some challenges, we can double test it again. But no, I think it's just great to see so many people on here participating. The excitement that you bring to this conversation is infectious to the patrons that you engage with. So if there's anything that we can do to kind of get you more excited or be more helpful, please do not hesitate to reach out at all.
Yeah, I would echo that. So I think we're getting towards the end here. If there are any more questions, I would pop them in the chat or raise your hand now. But also know that Dr. Asino and I are here to answer any of your questions. I think Heath and Kaylee are excited and would also speak to you from a librarian perspective on your plans. I would just like to emphasize here that OSU, the land grant university, I know not everyone is in Oklahoma. But we have a ton of resources. And so, if you get to a point in your project or there's a particular topic that's different than the 6 that we propose, or if you'd like to be connected with a scientist or an education expert to run your ideas by, we, for example, have Insect Adventure here at OSU, and that's the, Oklahoma's only live insect zoo. And I know she's out at libraries. We'd be happy to connect, you with those kinds of resources. So I think today is an introduction, an opportunity to meet Heath, but certainly want to be a resource for you.
And if anybody has a question, like, let's say you already know you want to do maps, or you already know you want to do leaves. If you have a specific question about any of those, I'd be happy to try to field those as well.
Yes.
I have a lot of fun on each of these, and I've learned a lot along the way.
Yep. All right, so thank you to the Southeast Oklahoma Library System. Thank you to Dr. Sino and the Emerging Technologies Creativity Lab, and Kaylee for all her behind the scenes work in making sure we have access to those materials and we don't have to recreate them. I'd like to thank our graduate students, Olaton and Jim, who are on, and the work that they've done to put the quick guide together and some ideas for you all. I would end by saying I have your names and many of your W-9s coordinating right now currently about those funds. And so you should hear from me if I haven't heard from, I haven't received your W-9, or and more information from accounting about processing your payments. So that's in the works. And I thank you for being here. We'll save this recording and share it with you in case you want to reference back later. And have fun outside this spring. It's an exciting time of year to be getting kids outside. There's all kinds of action. I was just laying in the grass watching the millions of bugs around me. And so I hope you also find some joy in exploring nature and exposing kids to going outside. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Nicole, for having me. I really appreciate it. It's a topic I love and I care about. And so I'm really honestly very psyched that there's so many people interested in doing a similar program. And so that's very exciting.
Yeah, how exciting is it? So many thanks and so interesting. We'll hang on for a few minutes if anybody wants to stay and ask a question, but if not, you're excused.